As of this moment, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my most anticipated game of 2024. Let's talk about it. Now, I love Final Fantasy VII. I also love Final Fantasy VII Remake. I love what they're doing with it. And everything that I hoped Rebirth would be is what it seems to be. We've had 2 trailers at this point, multiple interviews, and a whole host of gameplay and discussion come out from people who were able to go and play the game. I wasn't one of them, however, I've seen a bit of the coverage surrounding the game, and everything I've seen from Rebirth is exactly what I wanted to see. And I still haven't entirely decided upon the title for this video, but I think it's an interesting duality for Final Fantasy in the modern era, where you have the Final Fantasy XVI side of things that's far more dark and mature. It's telling an emotional story and doesn't have much levity to it. There's some, don't get me wrong, but not compared to the overemphasized, bombastic comedy and lightheartedness that the series used to have. Especially old-school Final Fantasy VII, where you can go from that Aerith scene to breeding chocobos in the gold saucer, or having Cloud dress up in a dress to be picked by Don Corneo, or the whole Honey Bee Inn scene from the remake. And I think that's one of the reasons that Final Fantasy VII has become so iconic for a lot of people. Because I think it blends the different aspects of Final Fantasy and what people like about Final Fantasy into a single game that is, let's be honest, cool. Like, Final Fantasy VII, the whole aesthetic to it is just cool. And sometimes, that's okay. And when it comes to Rebirth, I'm glad they're not going for a one-for-one remake. Especially with the end of Remake. Spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake from here on out, by the way. But it honestly feels like every aspect of Rebirth is a step in the right direction and what I wanted to see out of it, compared to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Remake took place entirely within Midgar. Understandably so, because that's what it was adapting. That's the story that was being told, but it was told over the course of a 40-ish hour RPG, and contained only linear sections and corridors to navigate, really. Rebirth does not seem to be the case, where we have far more open sections, not an entirely open world from the looks of it, or from what we hear, but it's a series of more open sections. And I think Jesse Cox made the comparison to the zone design of Final Fantasy XIV. And from what we've seen, I think that's a breath of fresh air. Gives you a nice sense of player agency to explore the world, but it's not too big, right? When it comes to the combat, I found the combat of Remake to be extremely fun. I loved how it incorporated the ATB utilization to kind of give this, like, reminiscing spirit of turn-based combat, but blended with the real-time action. And I loved it so much. My main issues with it were when enemies got a bit, health spongy, the combat kind of reduced to be a little bit spammy. However, they seem to have remedied that in certain key areas, namely with the synergy attacks. Now, these are really cool, because what they do is, as you use or at least some of your abilities that utilize ATB, you build up a gauge that you can spend on these synergy attacks. And these synergy attacks change depending upon who you're controlling and who's in your party. So like Cloud and Tifa would have a different combination than Tifa and Cloud, if that makes sense. And these attacks can do different things. And apparently there's an entire skill tree surrounding this, or at least some way to customize and progress the synergy attacks throughout the course of the game. Now, why do I really like the sounds of the system? Well, it's for a very simple reason, because they don't utilize ATB. I think the ATB system from the remake was really fun and rewarding, while incorporating a good amount of risk and reward and strategy. I found it really fun. However, when you're just spamming the square button to attack with Cloud or Tifa or whoever, like Barrett, or even Aerith, it can get a bit repetitive, right? That's understandable, and that's fine to admit. But when you incorporate these synergy attacks, you can utilize them in those downtimes, when you're not using ATB abilities. And you pair that up with the game giving you dodge, called warp, baseline, as well as a parry system, again, baseline for all the characters, and all of a sudden you have more things to do in that downtime when you're not just utilizing ATB abilities. It may sound simple, right? But to me, sometimes it's the simple things planted at key moments throughout the gameplay loop that can bolster the entire experience to make it more fun, rewarding, and engaging. Now, that's one reason I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The other one, the main one, is the overall charm surrounding the game, at least, from the looks of it. I'm anticipating this game to be emotional. If they're going to end, again, with the Aerith scene at the Capitol, which they said the game ends at the capital, and they've said that the game is going to be emotional. You juxtapose those elements with stuff like the gold saucer and some of the scenes we've seen in the trailer, and you get this dichotomy. You get the dichotomy between the emotional, serious moments that Final Fantasy, especially Final Fantasy VII, can do so well, but also the wacky, just insane, funny, comedic relief moments. And you blend those together and it creates an overall charm that I find appealing. It also helps just break the flow of things up. Personally, I get more attached to characters in a story if I'm given time to care about the characters when they're not just all crying or going through emotional trauma. Let me see them at their highs and also their lows, and from the looks of it, that's what Rebirth is going to be like. It also seems like Rebirth does not fall into the rabbit hole a lot of games can fall under, where there's opportunity for a really cool moment or gameplay mechanic and they just don't let you do it to preserve the spirit or whatever. You can just play as Sephiroth in the flashback scene. Like, we've seen that in the demo. People have played to that scene. And Sephiroth's gameplay looks freaking crispy clean. Like, it's moments like that that produce a sense of optimism for me. Because if you're willing to go that far, how far are you willing to go for other things as well? I don't know, to me, it feels like they understand the whole theme and the tone of Final Fantasy VII and what, at least I loved about it so much. And the game looks absolutely gorgeous. When it comes to a video game sequel, there's so many elements that you can do right and wrong, but it just seems like they're nailing the aspects of what I want to see out of a sequel. Bigger and better. Take what worked before, amplify it, leave behind what didn't work before, or change it up. What didn't work before? The level design, so we have more open sections. What worked before? The gameplay, especially the combat loop. Okay, well, let's improve on the key aspects that were maybe a little bit tired or repetitive at the end of it. Let's hone in on the RPG mechanics and progression systems, which from the sounds of it, this game has a lot of them. And I like the side content that was in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I just wish there was some more like mini-game stuff, and lo and behold, Gold Sauce is coming in. And they've already shown off and talked about a few of the mini-games. Heck, even in the trailer, we have the boxing one, the racing one, we even had that one mini-game in Interlude. Dude, I will never remember the name of that DLC, hold on. Integrate, yeah, it's Integrate. So for like moments in Final Fantasy VII Remake where it felt like they kind of played it safe and held their cards to the chest, it seems like they're just going all in and showing off what they can do. We still need to see how the final product is executed, obviously. However, I liked Final Fantasy VII Remake. I really did, and I loved Final Fantasy XVI. I know a different, like, team within Square Enix worked on that, but recently I haven't been let down. Like, Square Enix, when it comes to Final Fantasy, have not really given me a reason to be pessimistic about this game. From what we've seen and heard, it looks like a step in the right direction. At least for me and my personal preferences. Yours may be different, and that's entirely fine. But the world looks more interesting to explore, there seems to be more activities to do, more mini-games, more side content. Love to see that, and I love that side content is not just limited to the arena and some side quests now, at least from the looks of it. 2 thumbs up for me in that regard. We can play as Sephiroth, he has his own kit, which seems fun as hell. They improved upon the combat, and it seems like they have not forgotten the charm and the laughter and the lightheartedness that made Final Fantasy VII so compelling in moments. Like, the one thing I'm slightly disappointed on is no chocobo breeding, but the actual chocobo customization from the sounds of it collection seems fun and interesting, and I'm willing to give it a shout, or at least a try. I think Final Fantasy is at its best overall when they're having fun with it. When they're able to tell an emotionally complex and engaging narrative intertwined with just bombastic, high adrenaline moments of epicness, while also not being afraid to just be silly and wacky and zany and whatever. I think those are when those moments are present, that's when Final Fantasy is at its best. Final Fantasy XVI was extremely dark and mature, and at moments had bits of comedic relief, but overall it didn't have that sense of, well, if the Gold Saucer or Honeybee Inn, if that was an entire aesthetic, it didn't have that. I didn't mind that, but it is a breath of fresh air when Final Fantasy doesn't forget that. I think both styles can coexist, but I am particularly excited about those elements for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If I had to sum it up, it just looks fun. It really does. It seems like it's meaty enough where I can sink my teeth into it and have an enjoyable time. From what they said, it has like 100 hours of content. Cool. Great. I love that. I'll be doing all the side content, almost certainly. The story seems interesting, especially with the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, I just want to know what's going on. I want to have more time with all of these characters, because they're well written and well executed. And depending upon how the story goes, that may ring especially true for Aerith. But anyways, Everything we've seen out of Rebirth so far has given me reason to be optimistic about it. It looks fun, warm, interesting, and engaging. We obviously still need to see how it's fully executed in the final product, and sure, Vincent not being directly playable is a little bit of a letdown for me. I think he will be in the third game though, but either way, it just looks like a good time, and I want to play it. So I'm gonna call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in, my pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can, and as always, please follow me on Twitch at JMullsG. That's me over on Twitch, JMullsG. Link in the description down below. All my socials are down there as well. Leave a comment down below with if you're excited for Rebirth or not. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions, and what you're most excited about or what you're most disappointed about so far. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. Stay safe out there, but everybody have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.